Often, logos are the first thing you'll see in an environment, and they help to give the player an impression of what that environment's all about. It might stir emotions. We might have deliberately aggressive looking logos, or maybe they're kind of cute. Having a logo, it kind of helps to bridge that gap between the final object that you buy in game and this narrative brand that we've got going on in the background.
If it's all branded well, I think it adds a lot to the experience for the user. Users are trying to immerse themselves into the world of Star Citizen, so to have a well-developed logo for businesses within the game, companies within the game, gangs within the game, food products in the game, it really helps to make the game seem real.
So you go to really industrial town, we might have a logo that's a bit more kind of bold and blocky and cheaper looking. That helps to reinforce the feel that that environment is not upmarket, it's maybe been done in a rush, or the guy is not particularly up on his style. Maybe it's a cheaper establishment. So it helps to give the player an idea of what kind of setting they're in as well.
These logos are, developed the same way as they would if they were designed them for real life businesses. Everywhere you look, there's branding, and people expect that. When it comes to the process of design, we get a great brief describing the product or the logo that we need to design.
So once the artist has given us a selection of logos, the next step in the process is to present that to the directors. And we sit down and we think, which of these logos kind of sells the idea of the brand? Does the logo tie into the description that we've got, to the name, and also where it's going to be used in the environment? One of the logos that we're working on at the moment is Voyager Bar. This was interesting because we'd actually started building the environment before we made the logo.
The bar has great detail, the architecture is phenomenal, and so what I did for this logo is I tried to mimic the shape of the bar to the logo. When I come up with a design, I'm trying to come up with a few different ideas. So where we started with Geno's is with the chicken and the chicken's hair, and trying to incorporate fire because it's Geno's hot bird. I'm trying to come up with these little icons, colors, just a conceptual idea just to see which direction I'm going to go for the logo.
One of the examples is a bit more traditional. It totally works as a brand, but a couple of the other ones have a bit more character because they've got that image of the bird in there.
This was going to be the third concept for Geno's hot bird. I really liked how the G comes around in the beak and the eye. Unfortunately, when I finished it and I was very happy with the logo, my daughter came down and she goes, "Oh, Daddy, I really like that one the best because it looks like the Chick-fil-A logo." And I was like, "Oh God, it does too." So I said, you know what, we got to scrap this idea. This is not going to work. I don't want my logo to look like any other logo.
I think the one that stood out the most was the one where you've kind of got this stylized bird that's part of the O.
Incorporating that chicken with, the beak going into the S, and I thought, this is starting to work. This is starting to look like a great idea. So I just kept on doing different variations of this, trying the different fonts, and eventually I came up with this logo that was actually the one that was finally approved.
You kind of got that cartoony look, but it doesn't feel too off-brand. It's not super cute, but it kind of gives you a humorous impression, and it's also quite stylish as well.
In real life, the process is the same for creating logos for a business, and we like to put that much detail and time into each and every logo that we put out there into the game. I want to make sure that my logos are just as good as the level of detail that's inside the game and give the users a great experience.
It's important to get the logos right, because if you're playing the game and you, for example, you spot something that just feels out of place, that really breaks the immersion. That's one of the reasons why we just try and make sure everything's on point quality-wise and it fits with the world, and it just kind of keeps you immersed in the game and feeling like you're really part of that universe.
Now, logos may seem like a small thing, but in the Star Citizen universe, it's often the smallest details that can add up to create a greater and more immersive experience for everyone. But maybe you're interested in the big things, the giant space whale-sized cargo things that make their way through the universe traveling to homesteads across the system. Well, we got you covered. Here's this week's Sprint Report. We'll start things off with the Environment Art team as their work on the docking arms necessary to bring ship-to-station docking to life have moved from white box phase to gray box. Now, one of the key elements they want to maintain are more views in and more views out, including the skylights up above. And then, of course, there's testing of the docking hubs themselves, and the hows and the whens and the wheres to place them along the stations of the Stanton system. So there's enough room to fit some of our larger ships should they need to come in for any reason I'm not mentioning right now. The character art team recently completed a pass on the space whale statue that will sit at the heart of the floating commercial platform found in Orizon, future landing zone for the upcoming Crusader gas giant. Now the next step will be to integrate it into engine and then determine the proper materials, be it stone, bronze, or something else entirely. Respawning. Now if you're like me, you're going to see the respawn screen a lot. So a small sprint was spent prototyping out some new respawn screens that provide the player with a little bit of information about where they are and how they got there, and if it's a prison, a little bit about why you're there and what it might take to get you back out. It's a little thing, but like we said before, those little things tend to add up when working to improve the overall player experience. In ship and vehicle news, the EU Vehicle Feature Team has begun work on the interior lighting states for the upcoming Hercules Starlifter from Crusader Industries. Now, each area of the ship will need 3 distinct states such as emergency, auxiliary, and default operation. Now you can see here each state in a number of different areas inside the ship. And we're going to let you guess which area of the ship we're showing as we work through these. Suffice to say, the Hercules is making terrific progress, and it won't be long before this massive behemoth makes its debut in the Star Citizen universe. The Aegis Redeemer continues its journey through white box phase as artists and designers rework the interior using modern metrics that have been developed over time since the ship was originally concepted back in 2014. Now, while they continue reworking the interior spaces, they're also working the exterior to ensure the ship maintains its iconic silhouette on the outside. Designers and artists are also roughing out the white box exterior and interior of the Nova tank from Tumbril. Now this beast is deceptively large and will look to change ground combat forever when it arrives in the Persistent universe later this year. But for now, let's enjoy this early look at current progress and dream about all the places you're going to put one where nobody expects it. That's what I'm doing. And to wrap things up this week, let's check in once again with the team working on colonialism-style homesteads. And we have some additional concepting for a variety of add-ons to be found throughout the various encampments, like these cooling stations for enormous server racks, power plants with varying arrays of subcomponents like antenna, piping, displays, ladders, and more, fuel tank arrays with a variety of blockouts altering the way in which they connect with one another as they expand out across the horizon, solar array add-ons for both the power plants we saw before and habitat buildings themselves, refinery units, and finally potential blockouts for combining many of those aspects into outdoor storage yards that will form the basis for a wide variety of NPC and player experiences in the future. Now we'll start learning more about how these homesteads will begin being integrated into the Persistent universe in the coming months. So what did we learn this week? Well, we learned that in Star Citizen, the smallest details often get the same level of attention as the bigger ones. That the Starlifter may be farther ahead, but the Redeemer and Nova are continuing their journeys through White Box. And that if homesteads get any cooler, we all know they're going to get cooler, and we're going to keep checking in. Also, don't forget to tune in to Star Citizen Live tomorrow, where we've got Tony Z, and you can learn all about our first dynamic event called Xenothreat. I promise you're not going to want to miss it. For Inside Star Citizen, I'm Jared Huckabee. We'll see you next week.